Italy is my greatest source of inspiration, both typographic and gastronomic. I've spent decades combing flea markets and documenting signage, which has had a great influence on my work and my life. Well, I was art director of Pantheon Books. All art directors in the industry were so poorly paid that we all freelanced for one another. So when I started my business, I already had a significant client list and didn't have to look for work. The book jacket work was enough to keep me and an assistant busy, but this is when I learned two important lessons of having a studio. Never depend on any one type of work or client, and never sit and wait for the phone to ring with the perfect job, because there is no perfect job. Every designer needs to develop personal projects in order to find a unique voice. I started my studio with one assistant and a revolving door of interns, which made me realize that it would be better to just hire a second assistant. I've maintained the same formula for 28 years. I've never wanted to go bigger or smaller than two people working for me. The scope of work that I do is constantly evolving. I started out with book jackets and book interiors, then I added restaurants, then food packaging. All along, I would always be working on at least one of my own projects, a book, a product, or a font, which is a recent exploration. By keeping my studio small, I've been able to focus on my very specific interests. My work is often described as elegant, sensual, European-inspired, and tactile. Rather than simply borrowing from the past, I try to add my own perspective or personality to what inspires me. The typography is a reinterpretation of the historical references that pay homage and build upon those aesthetics. My work is informed by all of the reference that I've been collecting for as long as I've been a designer, maybe even longer. My sources are flea markets, secondhand bookstores, and Italian eBay. Lots of sources are free. I'm always photographing signs or scavenging orange wrappers that have fallen to the ground in produce markets. Anything with Italian or French type on it has always been magical to me. My studio is a walk-in archive of all the restaurant menus, business cards, matchbooks, and specialty food packages that I have designed or collected. I keep a lot of the materials in binders on my bookshelves so that just by spinning around in my chair, I can come face to face with endless inspiration that I never get tired of, that I will use directly or indirectly as reference. I tend to plan my trips to Italy around flea market schedules, which are very complicated, and it took me a long time to navigate that system. But there was one time when I took a trip to Bologna, and I was there for 7 days. I use that as my base. And in 7 days, I went to 8 flea markets. Surrounded by objects that I treasure, perfume labels, button cards, biscotti tins, I am routinely transported to Europe. My life and my work are inextricably combined, which is just the way I like it. My style has evolved over the years, mostly due to circumstance. At Pantheon and in the early years of my studio, I designed without a computer. Once we embraced the technology, and as the programs became more and more sophisticated, it became easier to make the work look more vintage-inspired, more authentic. Ironically, we go to great pains in Photoshop to make things look like they were not designed on a computer.